why the hell is Henry VII parading the real Warwick if we're now supposed to believe that this imposter boy was not pretending to be Edward of Warwick, he actually was Edward V? That doesn't make any sense, because why parade Warwick? Why do we have English sources at the time and Flemish sources abroad all saying that this conspiracy was in the name of a son of Clarence? Why do we have no other evidence whatsoever apart from this receipt to show that this conspiracy was in the name of Edward V, not Edward of Warwick? And finally, we are asked, why would the Irish crown a boy in Ireland, which is surely a great crime against their religion, to crown an imposter? Well, not if they genuinely believe that they did have a real prince amongst them. You know, of course, they would do everything by the religious rituals of the day. There's too much context around this time that this was all a conspiracy in favour of Edward of Warwick and not Edward V. The receipt does muddy the waters a little bit, and it does give this theory more legs, but it's definitely not proof of life. It's definitely not compelling, decisive evidence that settles the case. Nowhere near.
Yeah. Also, like, could it have been a typo? Like, that's it. Like, I'm thinking who wrote this? Like, it's an accountant, it's a person in accounts. Maybe they were just like, I could imagine them sitting there at their desk with their pen or their scroll, obviously, and like being told, okay, write this receipt out for this, and it's for this, and okay, I'll write a receipt, and like not even necessarily knowing. Like, is that a thing that could have happened?
Yeah, I don't see why. I mean, very famously, Margaret Beaufort, when recording the dates of birth of one of her grandchildren, the future Henry VIII, the certain Henry VIII, in her Book of Hours, she got the year date wrong. I mean, you know, these people get things wrong, and they don't have tip-backs, they don't have erasers. It's a lot more difficult for them to erase it. It could just be a misunderstanding. It could be what I said earlier, that they were actually trying to bolster the imposter's claim by saying he was Edward V. We simply don't know, which means it's not proof of life. It means it's not decisive if all of these things can be explained away. I think for this theory, it takes a lot of faith to believe that Edward V survived 1483. He existed for a couple of years abroad. He managed to go to Ireland in 1487. He invaded England, roughly around 16 years old at this point, and then we're asked to believe that he fought at the Battle of Stokefield in 1487 against Henry Tudor's army. And one of two things seem to have happened, according to the theory. One, he was killed and then replaced with a little imposter boy who is taken to London, and we're told this is Lambert Simnel, go and work in the royal kitchens. Or he was allowed to live out his days in Somerset as a chap called John Evans, which is one of the other latest theories of his survivor. I mean, you're asking us to believe a lot there. It doesn't mean it couldn't potentially have happened, but surely the most obvious thing that happened is the traditional story, which is there was an imposter boy created by a little cabal to pretend to be the Earl of Warwick, who was in the Tower of London and was the real Yorkist heir at the time.
So I know we're at half past, and I want to be mindful. I said this would take about half an hour, so I want to be mindful of your time. I just wonder, can you tell me why do you, and then I also want you to plug your books, but can you tell me why you think people have why this moves people so much, so long after? The amount of emotion that people have invested in this, why do you think that is?